Part 88. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Liao. Chapter 871. Don't worry, at least your mother is safe now, Gu Liang comforted her. Muzi held her forehead in frustration. She pessimistically thinks that Bai Wei may not be safe. Mu Zishuan kidnapped Bai Wei with ulterior motives. It was impossible to take her for a walk and chat. What would he do to Bai Wei? The more Muzi thought about it, the more anxious she became. She even wondered if Bai Wei would never make a mistake. Would a traditional and conservative person like Bai Wei commit suicide in shame and indignation? How to do? Mu Zishuan is very cunning. Unless he leaks his flaws, it will be difficult for us to find his trace, Gu Liang said. Zizi, people will always get carried away when they are complacent, and it is impossible to be alert all the time. Just wait patiently. We will definitely find your mother. Muzi understood what Gu Liang meant. Now that Mu Zishuan has just succeeded, he must be in the most vigilant state. After a long time, he will naturally relax. At that time, as long as there is a little flaw, Gu Liang's people will be able to follow the clues to find it. But can she wait? Can Bai Wei wait? Muzi's whole heart is in chaos. Young Master Gu, thank you. Muzi supported her forehead and said in a hoarse voice, I really must find my mother as soon as possible. You may not believe it, but I know her well. She must have been threatened. I believe you, Gu Liang nodded. If she wanted to go with Mu Zishuan, she could lie to you that she had gone abroad, but she didn't. She just hid in the hotel for a few days, and she and Mr. when we were together, Mu Zishuan was only 15 years old. While helping Muzi find someone, Gu Liang also did some research on Mu Zishuan. Back then, Mr. Mu was handsome, rich, mature, and funny, while Mu Zishuan was just a teenager. Bai Wei couldn't possibly like him. Most women prefer those who are more mature than themselves. If they have Electra complex, the age span of choosing a spouse is wider. Muzi was silent when she heard the words. Bai Wei likes older men, and every time she hugs the photo of old Master Mu, love bubbles can be seen in her eyes. But the problem is, Mu Zishuan's current age is quite old. Muzi's heart seemed to be placed on a pan of oil, frying and roasting on both sides, blaming herself for not taking good care of Bai Wei, and at the same time feeling aggrieved. If Bai Wei didn't run out stupidly, she might not be killed by Muzi Chuan abducted. She really hoped that Bai Wei was safe and sound now. In the entire month since then, Gu Liang has sent Muzi 2 news reports. One is that Mu Zishuan's car was abandoned on the highway out of Wenzhou, and the other is that Mu Zishuan's credit card suddenly has a consumption record, bought a box set at the supermarket. Mu Zishuan chose to use a credit card for a transaction that could clearly be settled with petty cash. It was like using this method to silently show off something. Muzi was so angry that his whole face was grim. Shameless, she gritted her teeth, and an angry voice burst out from between her teeth. She is so angry. Never seen such a vile and shameless person. Gu Liang was also surprised. The Gu family searched all over the world to find someone, but was tricked by the other party. This has never happened before. Mu Zishuan deliberately abandoned the car on the edge of Wenzhou, just to tell them that he had left Wenzhou. Far away from the Gu family's sphere of influence, it is even more difficult to find him and Bai Wei. Gu Liang developed a little interest in this person, and continued to check Mu Zishuan's past, and found some interesting things. Hua Rong also stumbled on this person. Tongwu said to Gu Liang, Hua Rong wanted to punish Mu Zishuan with the crime of commercial bribery, but on the day of the trial, the prepared evidence disappeared. Hua Rong arranged for a second prosecution, and it took a lot of effort to get him. The judge found Mu Zishuan guilty and served 7 years in prison. Mu Zishuan was given a chance to reduce his sentence, and he was released after only 5 years in prison. Gu Liang was puzzled. Why did Hua Rong deal with Mu Zishuan? Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Liao. Chapter 872. 5 years ago, Hua Rong should only be 20 years old. What grievances could he have with Mu Zixuan? This matter is unknown for the time being, but what is clear is that Mu Zixuan is extremely cunning. If he really targets Bai Wei, no matter how Mu Zi guards against him, he may not be his opponent. Master, look at this. Tong Wu handed the information he had just found out to Gu Liang. Gu Liang flipped through it a few times, frowned, pondered for a moment and said, "Send it to Miss Situ." When Mu Zi got this information, her heart was as if soaked in the winter lake water, it was so cold. According to the information, Bai Wei has an independent fund account, and people have been sending money into it since 15 years ago. As of 5 years ago, the amount has reached 700 million. And the person who arranged all of this was Mu Zixuan. The naive Bai Wei never suspected it, and mistakenly thought it was the private money left to her by Mr. Mu. Mu Zi suddenly remembered that before she entered grade to study, the tuition fee was not paid. Bai Wei always said, "Don't worry, Mom is rich." It turns out that Bai Wei is really rich. What kind of mentality does a man have to send money to a woman's account for more than 10 years? How many years has he coveted Bai Wei? The more Mu Zi thought about it, the more creepy she became. This feeling is too bad, knowing that this man has ulterior motives and evil intentions, but he can't find anyone, full of anger and nowhere to vent, and continues to be in fear. Mu Zi gritted her teeth. She was going crazy. One Friday evening, she walked out of school in a daze, and received a call from Mu Zhenning on the way. "Auntie Bai's phone can't be reached, is she at home?" Mu Zhenning asked Bai Wei immediately. Mu Zi's heart immediately lifted. "What's the matter?" Mu Zi asked. There was no sound from the other end of the phone for a long time, and Mu Zi was puzzled when she heard Mu Zhenning chuckle. "Second brother only made a face-to-face meeting after he came back, but he hasn't seen anyone for more than a month, so let me ask, Aunt Bai is here not there? This is inexplicable, the second brother is nowhere to be seen. What's the matter with Guan Baiwei? Why did you call to ask if Bai Wei was there?" Mu Zi asked in a deep voice, "What do you know?" "No more, no less, maybe just a little more than you know." Mu Zhenning spoke slowly and with long meaning. Mu Zi took a deep breath, his blood seemed to be rushing through his veins, and it took him a long time to restrain his emotions. "Mu Zhenning, what do you want?" "I'll help you find Bai Wei. After the matter is completed, you transfer the fund under Bai Wei's name to me," Mu Zhenning said. Mu Zi's knuckles turning white while holding the phone. She remembered that Du Hao once said that the most convenient thing about raising ghosts is to find people and ask for directions. Maybe Mu Zhenning really has a way. She didn't respond for a while, and Mu Zhenning thought she disagreed, and said, "You have to understand, the money in Bai Wei's hands originally belonged to the Mu Group." Mu Zi's throat tightened. "How are you going to find Bai Wei?" "If you agree, I'll come back." Mu Zhenning's voice was still indifferent. "I'll wait for you at home." "Then hang up the phone." Mu Zi raised her head and said to Shen Kong in front, "Go to Mu's house." The car turned immediately. Mu Zi didn't doubt Mu Zhenning, she believed that he had this ability. In fact, even if she didn't believe it, there was no other way now. She could only put all her eggs in one basket. The setting sun was setting, and the clear golden sunset slanted on the big tree on the side of the road, casting long shadows. Mu Zhenning seemed to greet her on purpose, and opened the tangle-wrapped iron gate early. Seeing her getting out of the car and walking, a mocking sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. He threw away the cigarette butt in his hand, and casually stretched out his foot to grind it. "Have you considered it clearly?" Mu Zhenning asked with a smile. "Do you need to make a written statement first?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Liao. Chapter 873. If you need it, I can make a written statement, I said seriously. As long as you can get him back, you won't lose a cent of the money. Musenning stared at her for a while, then smiled suddenly. Forget it, trust you once. He turned around slowly and continued walking. Although Muzi was puzzled, he still followed behind him step by step, keeping a distance of 2 or 3 meters. Musenning said, when I was young, I once heard my second brother quarreling with my mother. My mother wanted to drive Baiwei away. The second brother said that as long as Baiwei walked out of this house, he would turn around and marry her back. My mother was so angry I yelled and cursed, but then I really didn't dare to mention driving people away. Having said that, Musenning suddenly stopped in his tracks, and Muzi, who was behind him, almost bumped into him. She was about to stand still, and saw Musenning, who was in front of her, looking back at her. As long as you are still in Mu's family, you will be able to do nothing because you will be in the way of social integrity and shame, Musenning said. Now that you are not in Mu's family, guess what will happen? Muzi's face was tense. You knew this would happen. I don't know. It's all happened when I was young. I've forgotten it a long time ago. I just remembered it suddenly today, so I called to ask. I didn't expect. He smiled slightly and didn't continue. The two walked outside the small foreign building, and Musenning asked Muzi to open the door. Not much has changed inside. Muzi didn't take any furniture with her when she moved, so the living room was not much different from before except that it was deserted. Is there anything on her? Musenning asked. Hearing this, Muzi went to Baiwei's room and found a few hairs on the head of the bed. When she went downstairs again, she found that the curtains in the living room were all drawn, and Musenning was sitting on the sofa. Yellow paper. He leaned slightly, holding a lighter in his hand, and lit a few white candles. The atmosphere in the living room then became a little gloomy, and Musenning's face was soft and pale under the light of the candle light. Is hair okay? Muzi asked. Put it on the paper. Musenning didn't look up, but only concentrated on looking at the candle in his hand, and slowly placed it on the corner of the coffee table. Muzi put a few strands of hair in her hand on the yellow paper gently. After doing these things, she couldn't help but ask again, you were traveling at that time, just to learn these things? I originally went to find Huang Logui, Musenning told her indifferently. Huang Logui ran away in fright when he heard that the person he was going to deal with was the patriarch of the Huo family, but that place is quite interesting. He raised his eyes and glanced at her. It's an ancient village deep in the mountains and old forests. The villagers in it are good at raising ghosts, and some of them know some sorcery. They dare to do anything as long as they are given money. That place is considered the hometown of Huang Logui. Muzi was silent. Musenning checked the candles at the four corners and said, let all your people go out. Muzi was slightly taken aback, looking at the bodyguard at the door, hesitant. She was very afraid of being alone with Musenning. Musenning seemed to have seen her hesitation. A sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. He neither urged nor said anything, just sat quietly on the sofa and waited for Muzi to make a decision. Muzi knew that if no one was allowed to go out, Musenning would not start. Go and watch outside, Muzi said. There are all her people outside. Muzi thinks that even if Musenning wants to do something, he should weigh the consequences. After all the bodyguards went out, Muzi looked at him. Is it okay now? Musenning said, give me your hand. What? Muzi thought she had heard wrong. Musenning stretched out his hand, with the palm facing up, and said again, give me your hand. Muzi frowned, and gently placed her hand in his palm. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Liao. Chapter 874. Muzi's skin is slightly cool, soft and delicate in the hand, like cool and slippery jade, and soft silk. Some weird thoughts popped up in his mind, and Musenning couldn't help being distracted, but when he met Musei's suspicious and examining gaze, he suddenly came back to his senses, remembering how the woman in front of him betrayed him and fell into the arms of another man. The hatred in his heart surged, Musenning's expression became colder, his eyes seemed to be covered with frost. Has it already started? Musei stared at him, with both doubts and vigilance in his eyes. Yes, you can close your eyes now, Musenning said coldly. Concentrate on thinking about things related to Baiwei, and think about where she might be. Musei cooperated with him and acted according to his words. But Musenning only said to close his eyes, but didn't say when to open them. Musei didn't understand the taboos of these sorcerers, and waited anxiously for a long time, but she didn't see Musenning make any sound. After a long time, both of her arms were numb. She was hesitating whether to open her eyes or ask aloud. At this time, Musenning suddenly murmured, "Actually, we can start over, can't we? Qiao Jingjia is dead, and Murong Cheng is also dead. There's no one in between the two of us, why can't we start over? We should start over." Musei suddenly opened her eyes. Musenning. "Don't be in a cocoon, it's impossible for us," Musei said. "If you let me go, let yourself go too. You've just been unwilling all this time." Musenning suddenly squeezed Musei's hands tightly, and brought her into his arms. Alarm bells rang in Musei's heart. Almost subconsciously, he took out his gun and pressed it against Musenning's abdomen the moment he was hugged. The cold muzzle of the gun stood between the two of them. Musei believed that Musenning could feel it. But he didn't move, still holding her tightly. Musei didn't move either, she didn't want to shoot. She knew that both she and Murong Cheng had an inescapable responsibility for driving Musenning to this state. They owed him already, she didn't want to take Musenning's life away. "Musenning, what stands between you and me is not Qiao Jingjia and Murong Cheng, but deceit and life and death." Musei gritted her teeth and took a deep breath, trying to make her voice clear and calm. "I can't forgive the deceit, and I can't bear life and death, we will never be able to." Musenning hugged her, and could feel her body tense. He thought to himself, what a hateful woman. He hated her, and even more hated that she never gave him a chance. The heart-piercing pain spread throughout his heart, and every breath he exhaled was an unspeakable torture. "She is so hateful. Do you know?" Musenning whispered in her ear, "At that time, I was actually a little happy." The elegant fragrance from the hair lingered in his nose, as if it could relieve the pain in his body. Musenning said in a low voice, "Qiao Jingjia said, you committed suicide because of me, to get the insurance money, to help me tide over the difficulties. In fact, I know it's impossible, but I can't help being happy when I hear her say that. If that's the case, it would be great. If there is really one person in this world who can die for you, you will suffer, but you will also enjoy the pain, and you will become addicted." Musenning's breathing sank slightly, and the strength to restrain her became stronger. "But you are alive, and I can no longer deceive myself." Musei held the gun tightly, sweating, and the palm was moist. She hesitated to pull the trigger, but Musenning suddenly let go of her. Musei didn't stay any longer, she simply turned around and walked out. Baiwei is in Minggren Hospital. Musenning blew out the candles, and the living room was completely dark. His voice was particularly cold. "I don't know the exact location. I only saw her lying on the hospital bed. A few words for Ren Hospital." Musei turned her back to Musenning. "Thank you." She opened the door and went out. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Liao. Chapter 875. She opened the door and went out. The light outside made Muse's suffocated heart feel relieved. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly, as if she wanted to pour out all the gloom. The evening glow dyed half of the sky red, and the fire clouds piled up like a gorgeous brocade. Shen Kong followed her, and Mu Ziyi ordered, "Go to Minggren Hospital." Manager Shen nodded yes. Mu Ziyi sat in the car and kept silent all the way. Mu Zenning's words caused her emotions to fluctuate greatly, and she didn't know how to deal with it. She can't save him. Mu Zenning won't let him go, she can't save him. Maybe one day he will suddenly wake up, maybe there will never be that day, he just suffers, suffers, suffers all the time, and wants to drag her to suffer together. This is torture. Mu Ziyi couldn't accept it. The car stopped at the door, but Mu Ziyi was still sitting in the car and didn't get out of the car. She looked gloomy, and the driver and bodyguard thought she was thinking about something, so they didn't disturb her. Instead, Manager Shen answered the phone and said to Mu Ziyi, "Miss, it turns out that it is a private hospital, and it is a chain. There are 7 hospitals in the whole country. Look for it now." Mu Ziyi said, "If you have any clues, no matter how late, please let me know as soon as possible." Shen Kong immediately arranged manpower and took a plane to 7 different cities that day. Mu Ziyi sat in the car and pondered for a moment, then said, "Go to the villa on the mountain, I will go there to rest today." After being tortured by Mu Zenning, she wanted to fill herself with another emotion, as if she was forced to swallow a mouthful of bitter medicine, eager to stuff a piece of candy into her mouth. Murong Cheng is her sugar. It's just that the mountains are high and the road is far away, and it was already night when they arrived at the villa, and the dark and cold house could not give her much warmth. She turned on all the lights, and seeing the smiling faces of the 2 on the photo wall, Mu Ziyi finally felt a little better. Shen started to arrange bodyguards on duty at night as usual. Mu Ziyi said, "You can stay at the foot of the mountain, I want to stay in the house alone. There is only one way up the mountain, and staying at the bottom of the mountain can ensure safety." Shen Kong has no objection. When everyone left, Mu Ziyi was the only one left in the room. Looking at the pair of couples cups on the table, she suddenly realized that Murong Cheng had left her for 3 full months. Mu Ziyi scolded viciously in her heart, "Being together for the rest of your life is a lie, at least you owe me 3 months in this life." Thinking about it this way made my nose a little sour. She held back her tears, washed hastily, and fell asleep. This time, I didn't sleep well, and I had many messy dreams. At 6 o'clock in the morning, Manager Shen called her and told her that 7 hospitals had been checked, but nothing was found. If it wasn't Mu Zenning who lied to her, then this Mu Zishuan was too shrewd. Maybe he used a fake name, or maybe he ran away immediately when he noticed the abnormality. Mu Ziyi was a little hesitant. "Do you want to take a break for a while?" She was worried that under the urgent investigation, Mu Zishuan deliberately did not take Bai Wei to the hospital in order to prevent her whereabouts from being exposed. What if Bai Wei's illness was delayed? Mu Zenning said that he saw Bai Wei lying on the hospital bed. When I was worried, there was a faint sound downstairs, as if someone was trying to open the door. Mu Ziyi's heart skipped a beat. She picked up the gun by the bed and walked out of the room. However, there was no movement outside. Mu Ziyi slowly approached the door, wondering if she heard it wrong. At this moment, the door lock clicked. It was the sound of a key turning the lock hole. Mu Ziyi's eyes widened in astonishment. The person who can have the key to this house. Before she had time to think, the door had already been opened, and there was a man outside, standing tall in front of her. His short black hair was messy on his forehead, and he was as handsome and evil as ever. The familiar scent of his body surged in together with the fragrance of the morning dew. Mu Ziyi stared at him blankly, without moving for a while. After regaining consciousness, she suddenly hugged his neck tightly, and then began to cry, full of grievances flooded up like a tide, and even her voice choked up. "What should I do?" she cried. "Murong Cheng, I lost my mother. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, HandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 876. I hugged Murongcheng and cried loudly. Tears trickled down, and sadness and joy filled her whole heart. She seemed to have finally found support, and hugged him tightly, never wanting to let go. Murongcheng pulled her away slightly, pinched her chin with one hand, and lifted it up slightly. Musie's tears flowed more urgently. He watched quietly with his long, dark eyes, bowed his head and kissed her without saying anything. Musie's heart trembled slightly. His lips were warm, and the familiar coolness wrapped her, with the lingering and intense feeling of a long-lost reunion. At the emotional point, his hand unknowingly reached into her clothes. The slightly rough fingertips wrapped her softness and pressed on her chest. Muse's heart beat violently, pounding against the atrium. She felt suffocated, and also had a kind of sweet dizziness. Murongcheng picked her up and went back to the room. Musie's body temperature and fragrance remained on the soft big bed. He pressed her under him and kissed her again, biting his white earlobe and whispering, "I miss you so much." Musie felt sad, couldn't tell what kind of emotion it was. Her heart was both happy and sad, like she was about to cry at any time. Both of them were a little excited, kissed each other, and quickly took off their clothes. There is nothing to hesitate. She loves him, she wants to give herself to him. But at the last moment, her body faced him, her hands wrapped around his back, touching layers of uneven texture. Half of Musie's body froze. Like a bag of cold water pouring down from her head, she was completely cold. What is this? Musie sat up, pressed his shoulders, and leaned over to look at his back. On Murongcheng's back, there was a large new crimson scar, stretching from the center of the back to both sides, like the wings of a devil, both ferocious and strangely enchanting. Although the hard scab has been removed, there is still a slightly rough touch when rubbing. Murongcheng grabbed Musie's hand and pressed her under him again. Musie couldn't help but struggle. "No, you are hurt so badly." "It's not on the waist." Murongcheng didn't take it seriously. He lowered his head and kissed her snow-white neck lightly, lingering and intense. "No, no." Musie still felt that something was wrong. When he closed his eyes, there was a new scar on Murongcheng's back. The scab had just come off on the outside. Did it heal on the inside? What about the rest of the body? Are you hurt? She turned over and sat on Murongcheng's waist, eagerly checking other parts of his body. Murongcheng's breathing became more and more rough, and she felt her hands were lighting a fire. Sure enough, Musie found 2 more scars from the bullets. "No." She took a breath and said seriously, "I want to take you to the hospital for an examination." Murongcheng's entire face immediately darkened. "You think it's not good?" he asked through gritted teeth, and Barang pressed against her hard. Musie's cheeks were flushed, and she explained in embarrassment, "Don't make trouble, I'm worried about your body. Besides, I haven't prepared many things. After all, it's the first time, that, and I haven't prepared for it." Murongcheng reluctantly accepted this explanation. "I'll go buy it." He got out of bed and put on his trousers. His brows were full of boredom. Seeing his displeased face, Musie felt as if she had returned to the past, and her heart was sweet. She hugged Murongcheng's waist from behind, put her face on his broad and strong back, and said with a smile, "Shall we go to the supermarket? The refrigerator at home is empty, and I need to buy some vegetables, snacks, milk. I will cook when I come back. I'll eat it for you." There was a smile in Murongcheng's eyes. He turned around and lifted her chin. "I just want to eat you today." After that, he kissed her lips again. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 877. The two got bored in the room for a while. Mu Ziyi took out clean clothes from the closet and changed them for Murong Cheng. Dress in a casual style, sports trousers and a hoodie, the peaked cap is pressed low, and the shadow under the brim of the hat covers part of the handsome face. "He's so handsome." Mu Ziyi embraced his face and kissed him, then said with a smile, "This way, people won't recognize him, right?" "You really are. Why did you come back suddenly? You don't dress up, at least you wear a pair of sunglasses. Wang Zhan just let you mess around like this." Speaking of Wang Zhan, Mu Ziyi couldn't help complaining, "You came back alone? Why didn't you call me in advance? Wang Zhan has not heard from me. Last month I sent a message back to Xianghai, and I don't know him. Have you received?" Mu Ziyi babbled a lot, but Murong Cheng's complexion sank a little bit, and his eyes were covered with cold frost. "What's wrong?" Mu Ziyi asked him suspiciously. Murong Cheng said irritably, "I should have shot him dead." Mu Ziyi's heart skipped a beat, and she hurriedly asked, "You mean Wang Zhan?" Murong Cheng didn't seem to want to talk too much. He walked out of the room with his arms around Mu Ziyi's waist. "Don't mention that idiot, let's go to the supermarket." Mu Ziyi was in a panic. She almost thought that Wang Zhan had betrayed Murong Cheng, but then Murong Cheng called him an idiot. His tone didn't sound like betrayal, but rather like Wang Zhan had done something wrong to provoke anger Murong Cheng. Wang Zhan has always been cautious in front of Murong Cheng. What could he do wrong? Murong Cheng didn't want to mention it, and Mu Ziyi didn't want to ask. She called Shen Kong and asked the driver and bodyguard to drive the car up the mountain. When Manager Shen saw a man suddenly appearing in the room, his eyes couldn't hide his astonishment. Their people had been guarding the bottom of the mountain last night. How did this man come up? It seemed that the relationship between him and the lady was very close, and it was inconvenient for the manager to intervene, so he suppressed his curiosity and arranged vehicles and bodyguards for the two of them. About 20 minutes away by car, there is a large shopping supermarket. Mu Ziyi held Murong Cheng's arm, cuddling tightly like a couple in love, bought vegetables and fish. Mu Ziyi also wanted to buy fruit. While picking and picking, she saw many large red pomegranates neatly arranged, plump and fresh. In fact, it is not the season to eat pomegranates right now, and Mu Ziyi doesn't really want to eat them now, but when he sees pomegranates, he thinks of the scene when Murong Cheng peeled pomegranates for himself. "Peel the pomegranate for me to eat, okay?" Mu Ziyi acted like a baby at him, wanting to relieve the romance. Murong Cheng frowned and said, "It's really troublesome. Having said that, let's go over and chew seriously." Mu Ziyi pursed her lips and smiled, feeling warm. The phone rang suddenly, and she glanced at the screen. It was an unfamiliar number. She hesitated for a moment, then answered the phone. Miss Wang Zhan's voice was on the other end of the phone. Mu Ziyi was surprised, and opened her eyes slightly. Before she could ask, Wang Zhan said hesitantly, "There is one thing I have to tell you. After you know, don't get excited and don't worry." Mu Ziyi glanced at Murong Cheng, who was still picking pomegranates, subconsciously took 2 steps to the side. "What's the matter?" Wang Zhan hesitated to speak, and mustered up his courage a few times before saying, "Master Rong is gone." Mu Ziyi was even more surprised. She turned her head and looked at Murong Cheng again. Isn't he nice in front of her? Why did Wang Zhan say that Murong Cheng is gone? He ran away from the hospital, and I searched all over Xianghai city, but there is no whereabouts. Wang Zhan said in a bitter tone, "Master Rong is likely to look for you. If you see him, you must tell me. It would be best to persuade him to go back to the hospital." Mu Ziyi hesitated. Is very ill." Wang Zhan sighed heavily, and said, "Miss, Master Rong has lost his memory. Otherwise, I wouldn't have stopped contacting you for such a long time. Blessed to have each other in this life. Mu Shao, your wife is born again." Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 878. Wang Zhan explained to Mu Ziyi that Murong Cheng was seriously injured in the explosion and was unconscious for more than a month. After finally waking up, he didn't recognize anyone, and he couldn't even remember his own name. The doctor said it was a sequela of the concussion and he would recover slowly. Wang Zhan also thinks that the problem is not big, it's just amnesia, and it's not that he has become mentally retarded. As long as he explains the reason to Murong Cheng and takes over the remaining forces, they can create another thing in Xianghai City. Wang Zhan was optimistic about this, and arranged for people to send special products to buy way from abroad to help Murong Cheng deal with the aftermath. As time went by, Murong Cheng's body recovered slowly, and his memory also recovered a bit, but Wang Zhan vaguely sensed that something was wrong. Because Murong Cheng's memory is different from the facts that Wang Zhan knew. For example, it is true that Huo Shizhen was injured and turned into a vegetable in order to save Murong Cheng. Save him and die? It would be fine if Murong Cheng didn't remember anything, but his memory was wrong, which made Wang Zhan nervous, worried that he would hurt his brain. Wang Zhan rushed to find a doctor. The doctor said that it might be memory disorder caused by mental stress, and he might have to go to a psychiatrist for treatment. Murong Cheng almost beat Wang Zhan to death when he found out. Going to a psychiatrist will undoubtedly require him to admit that he is mentally ill. No one could take it. Murong Cheng's arrogance are even more unacceptable. Prolonged questioning stretched his endurance to the limit. Wang Zhan kept telling him that he had misremembered here and there, as if he was demented. Murong Cheng was furious and bored, and almost shot Wang Zhan several times. He wanted to prove that he was right, that his memory was real and existed in reality, that there was a house in his memory, and his woman was waiting for him there. Murong Cheng wants to return to Xinjiang. Wang Zhan was miserable. Murong Cheng had forgotten everything about the Mu family, let alone Huo Zheng was still alive. It was too dangerous to go back like this. But Wang Zhan couldn't stop Murong Cheng, he was powerless. Master Rong doesn't remember anything, and he doesn't trust me anymore. Wang Zhan sighed. Miss, if you see Master Rong, you must persuade him. Mu Ziyi was dumbfounded. She held up her mobile phone in a daze, her mind was blank and confused, and she didn't know how to think. If Murong Cheng loses his memory, then, he kisses her as soon as he enters the door, and has sex with her as soon as he sees her, what does he mean? Why are you in a daze? Murong Cheng walked over with a few pomegranates in his hands, and saw Mu Ziyi holding up his phone in a daze. His thick eyebrows frowned. Whose phone is it? His voice was low and not too loud, but it was heard by Wang Zhan on the other end of the phone. Wang Zhan's voice became shrill because of being frightened. Master Rong. Murong Cheng frowned, grabbed Mu Ziyi's phone without saying a word, and hung up the phone directly. Don't listen to his nonsense, Murong Cheng said. Mu Ziyi looked at him and murmured, Wang Zhan, he said you lost your memory. Murong Cheng was irritable. He put the pomegranate aside, held Muse's shoulders, looked her in the eyes and said, after the injury, my memory did have some problems, but I didn't lose my memory, understand? Wang Zhan just it's exaggerating. Mu Ziyi couldn't make up her mind, should she trust Murong Cheng or Wang Zhan? The Murong Cheng in front of him was handsome, wicked and aggressive, no different from before. There was really no sign of memory loss. It's just because of my injury that my memory has deteriorated, not amnesia. Murong Cheng rubbed her head, then bowed his head and kissed her. Let's go to pay the bill. Mu Ziyi silently followed behind him, thinking of another thing. When she said that her mother was lost, Murong Cheng didn't react at all. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life. Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, HandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 879. There was a long queue at the checkout aisle at the supermarket, and Mu Ziyi followed Murong Cheng in a strange mood. Wang Zhan is a very cautious person. If Murong Cheng's symptoms were not very serious, Wang Zhan would not have come to the conclusion of amnesia. So, if he really forgets the past, will it affect his relationship with her? Mu Ziyi quite minds this. She slightly raised her head to look at Murong Cheng's side face. Her features were handsome, her jawline was handsome and beautiful, and she exuded an air of indifference that should not be approached by strangers. Girls would find it particularly attractive. Several young girls in the next line were peeking at him. Mu Ziyi silently put his hand into the pocket of Murong Cheng's hoodie. Murong Cheng looked down at her. "Hands are a bit cold," Mu Ziyi said. Murong Cheng also put his own hands into the pockets of his jacket, wrapping her little hands warmly in his palms. Those scrutinizing eyes were retracted. Murong Cheng gently scratched her palm. His voice was very low, satisfied now. Mu Ziyi's cheeks were slightly red, and she muttered softly, "I don't know what you're talking about." Murong Cheng didn't speak, but a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. When paying the bill, Murong Cheng picked up a box of sleeves on the shelf of the cash register and lightly threw it into the shopping basket, making Mu Ziyi's face even redder. The two returned home after shopping, cooked and ate together, and leaned on the sofa to watch TV after eating. I didn't know what TV series it was, so I finished watching an episode in a daze, and Murong Cheng proposed to go back to his room for an afternoon nap. Mu Ziyi said awkwardly, "I'm not sleepy, I want to watch it for a while." "Go back to the room and have a look," Murong Cheng said. "There is also a TV in the room." Mu Ziyi was still reluctant. She had a lot of things in her mind. She wanted to say it, but she didn't know how to say it. Murong Cheng didn't bother to wait any longer. He picked her up and went upstairs directly. Wait a minute," Mu Ziyi panicked, "I'm not ready yet." Murong Cheng kicked the door open with his feet, threw her on the bed, and took off his shirt. "You don't need to prepare for this, I will just do it." Mu Ziyi was anxious. Let's talk." "Murong Cheng, I think we should talk first." Murong Cheng took off his own, and came over to take off Mu Ziyi's. "What are you talking about?" Do you remember my name?" Mu Ziyi asked in a panic. Murong Cheng laughed. "You are Su Ziyi, how could I not remember your name?" Mu Ziyi asked again, "Then do you remember how we got together?" Seeing that she had been pestering this matter, Murong Cheng's expression darkened. "You don't believe me either." "I believe it." Mu Ziyi put her arms around his neck and buried her face in the hollow of his shoulder. "I believe you love me, but I'm also worried about your body. What should I do if you really forget all about the past?" "Murong Cheng, I'm scared." Murong Cheng's breathing stagnated. He didn't move for a while. For a long time, Murong Cheng pulled Mu Ziyi away, and looked into her eyes seriously. "I did forget some things, but I am not amnesia. I remember that we studied in the same school in high school, and we got together after graduation. You said you like ginkgo trees, and the golden autumn is very beautiful, so I bought this house. I planted ginkgo trees outside the house. I like to kiss you under the tree. I love you, Zizi." Mu Ziyi's eyes turned red. She hugged him tightly. Her throat seemed to be blocked by something. "Murong Cheng, you are so stupid." Seeing her reaction, Murong Cheng asked in a daze, "Did I say something wrong?" Mu Ziyi raised her head and kissed him sadly, holding his face, and said, "Look at me, think about it. Am I Su Ziyi? Is Su Ziyi's appearance like mine?" A strange emotion flashed across Murong Cheng's deep black eyes. His eyes fell on Mu Ziyi's face, but it seemed that he was looking elsewhere through her. "But I saw the picture downstairs, the picture in the room, is consistent with my memory. I can't remember it wrong." Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 880. Those photos were originally taken by Murong Cheng with her for his own entertainment, but he mistook them for the real ones. I felt even more sad, unable to utter a word, only tears could not help falling down. His memory is the fact he most expects from the bottom of his heart, and his dream. Even if you forget everything, your dreams will never be forgotten. I's tears made Murong Cheng realize something. His expression was first stunned, then solemn, gloomy, his fingers slowly clenched, and he whispered, "Am I mentally ill?" "You just misremembered." I hugged him tightly, "You will remember." She took a deep breath and emphasized again in a low voice, "You will remember." The room was no longer as charming as before, and Murong Cheng lay down on the bed in low spirits, staring at the ceiling without saying a word. I snuggled into his arms, her heart throbbing in pain. Her heart ached badly. I had no choice but to comfort myself. It was a blessing that he could come back safely. Compared to losing one's life, things like memory confusion are nothing to mention. Now that medicine is so advanced, a solution can always be found. She was thinking to herself. At this moment, Murong Cheng suddenly asked her, "How did we get together?" I was stunned. This question, it's a long story. Anyway, take it by force. I was crying, but now she couldn't help laughing. "You are not a good person, and you almost pissed me off several times." Murong Cheng also smiled when he heard the words, "If I'm not a good person, can I let you have time to chat on the bed?" "You're not serious." I pinched him. Murong Cheng smiled and leaned over to kiss her. After kissing for a while, I tentatively asked, "Let's see a doctor tomorrow, shall we?" Murong Cheng frowned slightly upon hearing this, but remained silent. Musa was afraid that he would not want to, so she quickly held his face and kissed him, coaxing, "We don't want to go to the psychiatrist, let's consult with the psychiatrist first, okay?" Murong Cheng looked at her, "What good do I have?" I thought for a while, her eyes lit up, and she said with a smile, "I'll peel the pomegranate for you." "What kind of benefit is this?" Murong Cheng was amused in his heart, but when he saw I staring at him with bright eyes, there were expectations, apprehension, and forbearable worries in her eyes. Murong Cheng's heart softened completely. "Okay." His lips touched her forehead, "Then peel the pomegranate." The next day, I took Murong Cheng to see a well-known psychologist. The psychiatrist said that this was the result of subconscious self-defense. When Murong Cheng woke up and found that he had lost his memory, and he realized that he had to recover as soon as possible, he would have a huge psychological pressure, which prompted him to recover in a short time. To fill in the gaps in memory, the brain is forced to create false memories. When she was alone with the psychiatrist, I asked him, "Is this considered a mental illness?" Mental illness and mental illness are sometimes separated by a thin line. After the other party finished speaking, he paused for a while, and then said, "But if it continues to deteriorate, there will be more and more false memories, which will affect real life and may cause mental disorders." I's face turned pale. "Continue the treatment for a while and see the effect," the psychologist suggested. "The most important thing is not to increase his pressure." "Thank you." I took a deep breath. After coming out of the psychiatrist's office, endured and endured, finally couldn't hold back, and called Wang Zhan. "How on earth did you take care of him?" I was furious. "Why didn't you notify me when he was injured? Why didn't you notify me when he lost his memory? Why did you decide on your own? Who gave you the right? If I didn't see how are you going to torment him? Send him to receive psychiatric treatment? Do you know that doing so will put a greater psychological burden on him? This situation could have been avoided in the first place."